Let me start by welcoming you again to DAS and to this special TC10 TC11 session. That's not something we used to do in DAS. Under normal circumstances, we would have ICPR in 2020, and we do have a TC10 TC11 session in ICPR. But of course, this year is a bit special and everything has moved forward. So ICPR has moved to January 2021, and I thought it would be nice to at least try to give you an update on what has been going on, taking advantage of the DAS workshop. So I suppose you all see my screen. I have tried to coordinate a bit with Alicia and the leadership team of TC10. Although DAS is a TC11 event, we thought it was good to give you a bit of an update on both technical committees. By the way, I understand that some people that might be listening are not necessarily members of TC10 or TC11. If this is the case, feel free to join us. You can see the links to the websites below. Usually in this kind of meetings, we go over our plannings and the different events that will be organized. I will leave this for tomorrow. There is a special session for presenting events that are already planned. The other side of future events has to do with bids for organizing events, and we have been a bit slow with that. And the reason for that is that we didn't think that, given the situation, it made any sense to rush making public bids for organizing future workshop. I don't think people are in a good condition right now to prepare this kind of bids, but we will be starting soon. We will be recirculating a bid for the summer school for next year, and eventually bids for the future editions of the rest of the events of TC10 and TC11. So watch this space. But instead of going through this kind of detailed report on activities, I'd like to focus this 20 minutes today on giving you a short update on something that we started in 2019, after ICDAR 2019, and I'd like to explain you basically a bit of a context on that and what we have been doing since ICDAR 2019. So I don't know how many of you are aware that by the end of ICDAR 2019, we said that we would be working on a strategic plan or pluriannual strategic plan for TC10 and TC11. So I'll give you a bit of history on that, and I will explain you what we have been doing over the past 6 months. So the story is a bit long, as it starts a few years ago, a couple of ICDAR editions ago. Back in 2017, Professor Koichi Kise, the general chair of ICDAR 2017, and Professor Andreas Dengel, the awardee of the outstanding of the senior award of ICDAR of the last edition, decided to host a workshop in the context of ICDAR to discuss a little bit about the future of the document analysis community. The feeling back then was that we are catching up with all this deep learning revolution, but maybe a bit slower, and we wanted to have a bit of a discussion about that. That was interesting. That was based on one hand on a number of visions for the future given by senior researchers in our community, and then discussion groups, more or less like the ones that we are going to have today, but more focused on, more open-ended, focused a bit on different aspects on the future of our community. And the results were shared in the conference and also followed up by a panel discussion by the end of ICDAR 2017. The feeling was positive. I think it was very interesting to do this kind of exercise. So 2 years afterwards, in ICDAR 2019, we decided to follow up with a new edition of this Future of Document Analysis and Recognition workshop. But this time round, before the workshop, we tried to start the debate earlier, because obviously a half-a-day workshop is not enough time to get everything discussed. So we defined a number of different debate spaces we use the Kialo platform for that, and we made public the links to these debates. Actually, these debates are still open if you want to go and look at them. These were not voting spaces. We didn't care too much about a yes/no vote. We're mostly were debate spaces where people could add for and against opinions or reasons for different things. And we tried to be a bit provocative about what kind of things we could discuss there. And that was interesting feedback that we received before the workshop. So given this feedback, and also well, that's what these debates look like. If you go to Kialo, so you'll see that there are positive and negative views for every sentence, every statement that you see there, and then you might have disagreements or agreements with different points that people make. So I think it's an interesting platform to host this kind of debates, because more than a yes/no voting, it allows us to capture basically different reasons for or against doing things. And as I said, please feel free to join the discussion and add your opinion if you want to. And then, given that, and also a number of a lot of data that we have been collecting over the years, the organizers of the 2019 Future of DAR workshop, that was myself, Professor Koichiki and Professor Sivi Javaha, we also wrote a white paper that was a personal opinion, of course, on where we come from, and a couple of proposals about where the community could go to in the future. So that was basically a bit of preparatory work before the workshop. And then in the half day of the workshop that we had, we split it in two parts. The first part was thinking in the world of possibilities. So there is no stoppers there. There is nothing to stop you achieving basically your goal. And what we tried to do was to try to define a common vision between all the participants. So everybody gave different opinions about how this community, how this research area should evolve, and they more or less clustered into these themes that you see over there. And on the right, what you see is a synthetic version, basically, of what was the common vision that we came up during the first half of the 2019 workshop. And I think that this is a vision that should be shared basically by everyone. There's nothing. There's all positive stuff in there about where we want this community to move to. So given this common vision, we tried to move from the vision to actions. And of course, this is very, very difficult to do in half a day. But that's what we tried to do in the second half of the workshop, by asking different teams of people to now translate these different themes and this common vision into at least a number of key actions that the community should take. So a number of interesting outcomes came up from this second part of the discussions that can be summarized. Well, the list is much longer than what I put on the screen right now, but these are probably the key areas where some action was demanded. So we explained the outcome of this workshop in a plenary session during ICDAR, and we also discussed it with the ICDAR advisory board. And we thought that it would be a good idea to actually structure this a little bit better and come up with a plan which is a little bit more mid-long term than just one ICDAR to the next. So the decision back in 2019, as we announced at the last session of the workshop, was to define a small group of people, a task force that would work into a proposal for a strategic plan. You know? So that's basically where we left things in 2019. So I will explain you what happened over the past 6 months, basically. So the first thing to do was to define this small group of people, and that was a difficult task. We tried a number of things, but at the end of the day, the main point there was to make sure that everybody is well represented in this small team of people. We wanted to have a team of less than 10 people so that we could actually meet face to face and work on things. Eventually, we expanded it to 15. But if you see in this team, we have basically a good geographic coverage. We try to get into this team young people. So we got the Young Award recipients of the past few editions of ICDAR. We got senior researchers, people that have organized ICDAR, ICFHR, DAS, GREC in the past few editions, and also all the people that are supposed to organize the next editions, DAS 2020, ICFHR 2020 and 2022. ICDAR 2021 and 23. So all these events were kind of represented there. We tried to get some people from industry, some people from academia. So we had a good mix of people there, and also representatives from all the different steering committees that we have: the DAS steering committee, the ICDAR advisory board, previous organizers of ICFHR, which are the default steering committee of ICFHR, etc. So I don't know if we did a good or a bad job, but I think that at the end of the day, the group of people that we gathered is representative in these terms. one thing that we are doing pretty bad as a community, not in terms of the task force, is gender equality. We only had one woman there. It would be nice to have some more, and that's something obviously to work into, not only in the task force but as a community in the near future. But nevertheless, the task force was set up, and then we worked a bit on collecting all the data before we start our analysis and defining the strategic plan. So I will not go through the data. If anybody has an interest in this, there is a long presentation of about 80 to 100 slides that you can get from the URL that you see up there on the right. But just to have a feeling, we analyzed basically all the participation we had in the TC10, TC11 events and how people flow between events over the time. We analyzed how many submissions we received, acceptance rates, and how these have been fluctuating over the years. We looked into the composition of the different committees and organizing committees, program committees over the past decade or so, to see basically what kind of repetition we have there, and if we actually follow a cycle, a recycling process in this kind of committees. We looked into what happens in document analysis recognition outside our own domain. There's a lot of things happening in computer vision conferences, for example, but also in NLP conferences, etc. We looked into the packed calendar that we have, not only within IAPR, but also how this compares with other things that are happening in parallel. So there were a number of interesting inputs that we took into account before we started working. And also we launched a questionnaire to a small number of people to gather a bit of some extra opinions about the present state and also the future of the community, and to help us basically do the SWOT analysis, the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats analysis. So following all this, we actually we managed to gather the task force in Barcelona in January 2020. That was just on time, because after that, basically I think that the whole world closed down. But we did manage to meet face to face. And the first thing we did, although we tried to make sure that the task force is as representative as possible, we are aware that we might have missed some kind of profile that participates in our community. So the first thing we did before we started working was to try to empathize a bit with the people that constitute our community. So the first thing we did was to work on empathy maps, which are is a tool basically to define different profiles of people that might participate or will participate in the future in our events, and make sure that we haven't missed any typical profile of the kind of people that participate, and try to get into their shoes and understand why they are here, what they want to do, what would be their aspirations, their needs, and the pains and the gains they might have. So we defined a number of different fictional people that should be representative of the type of profiles that we have in our community, and that was important because all the rest of the discussion should be done also through the eyes of these people. We worked on a SWOT analysis for our community, and that basically derived into a number of objectives. You can see the objectives, 6 objectives, high-level objectives that we came up over there on the right, that are aligned to the vision that I shared with you before. And then we spent the rest of the 2.5 days that we had basically into turning all this into a possible list of actions. So there is a list of actions that we're still working on, trying to make it a little bit more easy to see and understand, that are grouped basically in a number of different lines, which is what you see over there. This is a very, very early draft of what would be the core of the strategic plan. So we're still working on clarifying things and grouping things so that they make sense and they are consistent. And eventually, this will be complemented also with a list of actions that we will share with the community. So this is basically what we tried to do over the last 6 months. We had a much more ambitious plan to have already finished with a draft by now, but of course the whole situation has not been easy for anybody to keep working on that over the past few months. So this will take a little bit more time, but eventually the idea is that there's going to be a version 1 of this strategic plan that we will share with the community. We'll get some feedback that will be updated, will be shared again, and eventually we will be able to announce it, to announce basically a strategic plan for the TC10 and TC11 communities, hopefully by ICFHR in January. And otherwise it would be ICDAR in 2021. But during 2021, hopefully we should be able to have a strategic plan that we can all feel comfortable with. So that's where we are right now, and that's basically all I wanted to say at this point. So watch this space. We will be needing and we will be welcoming your feedback over the next few months. And if you have any questions or if you want to offer any insight that we can take into account, you're more than welcome to contact either Alicia or myself and let us know about it. Yeah. So I don't know how I'm doing in terms of time. I think we have like 5 minutes to open up to a discussion if anybody has anything to say. Otherwise, you can have a longer break.
Dimos, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Thank you for the nice presentation. And I just missed the first part of your presentation. I'm wondering whether you're able to open this slides to the participants.
Yeah, the first part actually starts with you, because I quickly summarized the workshop that we did in 2017. Mm-hmm. That was a very nice initiative that basically got the ball running in starting to debate about the future of our community, and it led us to the 2019 workshop, etc.
So my question is whether the people are able to access to the slides.
Yes, they can already access to the data behind the slides, and I will make these slides also available in the TC11 website. If you go at the very bottom of the TC11 website, there is a tab that contains practically nothing at this point, but a couple of links, which is called the strategic plan. So these slides will be available there, and as soon as we get the recording, that will also be available.
Yep. Good. Thank you.
More comments?
So, Dimos.
Yes.
I want to say a few sentences. Actually, I heard that actually you mentioned about the strategic plan discussions in the last year, but unfortunately I could not attend. So today, this is the first time that I listened to a complete introduction of the progress of this discussion. So I want to stress 2 points for promoting our community of document analysis and recognition. And so one is the reshaping of the conferences, because we have many conferences, ICDAR and ICFHR, DAS, and maybe so. So we can see that in computer vision, you also mentioned that some of the computer vision conferences are now so very overwhelming, large number of submissions and low acceptance rate. So to promote our community of document analysis, I think we need to have a flagship conference, maybe by merging ICDAR with some other workshops. So this is one way. And there's another point is that we must lower the acceptance rate of our conferences. So we can see that ICFHR and DAS may have acceptance rate even over 60%. The ICDAR is about between 50% and 60%. But we can see it now some AI conference and computer vision conferences have acceptance rate below 30%. I think for our conferences, I think it's possible to first lower the acceptance rate from 50% to 40%, because I have experience of serving as program chair with ICDAR and also ICFHR. So every time we see many borderline papers, actually, so which are have not good quality. Most of the borderline papers can be rejected actually, but finally, so in our past conferences of ICDAR, for example, most of the borderline papers were actually accepted, but I think they should be rejected. So if we can lower the acceptance rate, I think the quality and the fame of the conference can be promoted. Okay.
Yes, I fully agree. Actually, you mentioned about having a flagship conference. That's something that is a recurrent suggestion, and we did analyze it deeply, and that is one of the things that we looked into, pros and cons on having a flagship conference every year instead of having too many events running in parallel. And of course, improving the content and the quality in our events as well. So there are a few actions in these spaces. It's true that we have a core A conference, which is ICDAR, which happens every 2 years, and then we have DAS and ICFHR and GREC, which are core B or not even mentioned in core. So we should look at all these things together, and these are a few important actions that we have gathered into this block on improving the quality of our activities. So yes, I absolutely agree with you.
Okay.
Any other quick comment? Okay, I understand also that this is not the best format to have an open discussion, but eventually through ICFHR and ICPR, etc., there will be more opportunities to discuss. And of course, as I said before, watch this space. We will be communicating to you a first version of strategic plan eventually over the next few months, right? So more than happy to receive comments. Thank you very much for your attention. And if there are no more comments, I think we can close the session now.
Okay, thank you, Dimos.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.